Hello.
Hello.
Anjali, good time to go.
Sir, shall we start or should we wait for
I think your
2 minutes?
introduction can go, so that's
Yeah.
time to.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sure. So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you all for joining the session today. This is the second talk on FOSS Entrepreneurship Forum. So, for those who are not aware of ICFOSS and what ICFOSS does, ICFOSS is an autonomous organization under the government of Kerala, focusing on the promotion, propagation, and development of free and open source software. We have R&D projects in the R&D team working on IoT and open hardware, language computing and machine learning, e-governance, GIS and RON, etc. We also have an incubator called Swatantra Incubator, basically to support free and open source software and hardware startups. We have 7 companies incubated with us right now, working in domains like open hardware, IoT, GIS, machine learning, Open ERP, LMS, etc. We are planning to provide pre-incubation support from this year onwards. As part of that, we are conducting this FOSS Entrepreneurship Forum. Um, this forum is a series of interactive sessions on FOSS and entrepreneurship possibilities, aiming to provide an insight to budding entrepreneurs on how FOSS can help with their entrepreneurship dreams. This is basically a stage for discussion between successful free software founders and FOSS enthusiasts, where people can clarify their concerns and try to make use of FOSS technologies to build their solutions in a better way. Swatantra Incubator is planning to conduct this series of sessions every month where you can meet and talk to experts from various free software domains and technologies. So let's move on to the session now. We have Mr. Nishant Sharma with us for today's talk. Nishant runs a free software business named Unmukti Technology since 2010, where his team builds Hawkbox brand network equipment and provide managed network services to their customers. He has been active in free software community since 2003 and presently contributes to OpenWRT project. On behalf of ICFOSS and all of you present here, I am inviting Mr. Nishant Sharma to the FOSS Entrepreneurship Forum. Over to you, Nishant.
Thank you, Anjali. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank ICFOSS for inviting me to share my story. As Anjali already introduced, we run a free software business called Unmukti Technology, and here we build network equipment like firewalls, routers, access points with free software on sufficiently open hardware. Today, I would talk about my experience of building this business and network equipment with the hope that there is a takeaway or two for every one of you. So I come from Delhi, and there are a few of my affiliations. I translated Debian installer to Hindi in 2006 and 7. I was volunteer mapper with OpenStreetMap and mapped a good chunk of Gurgaon. I contribute to OpenWRT project, and I'm associated with Free Software Foundation of India and Free Software Foundation US. And I'm also assistant nuisance at the GNU project. Right, so free software and sufficiently open hardware. Since we are here at ICFOSS Entrepreneurship Forum, I'm taking the liberty to assume that we all are aware of free software philosophy, and we understand what freedoms are guaranteed by free software. By sufficiently open hardware, I mean the hardware which is capable enough for running our firmware or Libre software. Because most of the devices that we use are embedded and are not completely open or completely free. For example, the bootloader, we might not have source code for bootloaders of all the devices. There might be binary blobs for certain drivers. So, but they are open enough for us to be able to install our firmware, which is customized from upstream free software project called OpenWRT. So yes, I had decided to tell story of my journey so far, so that everyone, I just want to share my experience so that everyone can understand and know what are the highs and lows during running and building a free software business. So it all started in year 2000 when I first installed GNU Linux distribution on my computer at college. So I was a mechanical engineering student at Regional Engineering College Durgapur, which is now known as NIT Durgapur. I also got to maintain college web server and learned to write code in Perl. We were at hostel, and we all had our own computers, but they were standalone. So few of us friends took initiative to buy cables, connectors, and network cards and put our computers on the local network. So those days, BNC cables and connectors were used. The kind of cables you see with the DTH satellite satellite box and antenna. So that was my first attempt at building a computer network. After the college, I joined Deeproot Linux in 2003, where I was building and managing email servers, firewalls, bandwidth managers, and I learned to handle customer support. This was the first time when I heard the word free software and asked Abbas the question that everyone must have asked at least once. When it is free, how are we earning money? And Abbas patiently explained it over that whole Sunday afternoon to me. And that crash course in software freedom was going to change how I looked at and perceived things. I, there I came to know about mailing lists of various free software projects and learned how to ask questions the right way to get help and clarification, and also how to communicate in the community and help other people. This was also the first time I had reported any bug. It was to Sama project, and they made a new release to fix it. So, and I also learned that logs on the system are there for a reason, and one should look at them to understand and fix problems. So all these learnings uh, were very helpful at the later stage in the life when uh, when I had to seek guidance and help from various software projects by asking questions on the mailing list and communicating with developers over IRC. From Deeproot, I moved to work for Indian and European ISPs. Uh, so they were normal corporates, and I get to manage their servers and build various automation tools and write migration scripts. I also managed to send 25,000 routers offline because they wanted me to upgrade the configuration at around 75,000 devices in one go. Since the configuration was non-standard, uh, I was able to bring 25,000 routers offline, and they had to send technicians at all the locations in Europe where those devices were installed. There, I also understood the impact of a 2-minute outage, how critical are network systems and servers which are running in production. But the downside was I was forced to use a lot of non-free software, and I had to undergo training for them. Uh, and then I also had to fight hard to use GNU Linux on my laptop. But my manager was very supportive, so we somehow got permission to use the operating system of my choice on my laptop. So a paying job actually let me contribute to the contribute to the Debian project and OpenStreetMap uh, without worrying for for my finances. Then I also had interest in hacking a different kind of hardware. So I tried to scratch my itch by making some interesting hardware projects. For example, I made a network music player using an off-the-shelf router and connected a USB sound card on it. That was my first exploration of an embedded hardware. And then I learned about OpenWRT and music player daemon. I had also made a pigeon nest monitor just for fun. So I used this high resolution web camera and a commodity router. I installed OpenWRT on it with MJPG streamer, which used to stream. And then I connected I consumed that stream on a computer which ran motion detection software. I wanted to actually capture hatching of the pigeon's egg, but someone turned off the power the day the eggs hatched, so that project failed. Finally, I decided to take a call and quit. When I quit, I knew that uh, I have to work on free software, but what will I do? I didn't know. So, but I jumped the ship, and yes, so I tried to start with making Linux-based thin clients. I also wanted to build CCTV or network video recorders and media centers, but somehow I ended up building firewalls and routers and access points because my past work experience was on the same line. There is a quote from Douglas Adams. I may not have gone and where I intended to go, but I think I have ended up where I needed to be, which I still believe is true for me. So when we started Unmukti, the first prospect, I think we got the first prospect inquiry from Google Ads, and they needed to replace their proprietary firewall. So we had a discussion, and then we dispatched a PF Sense installed on a desktop machine. The demo was fine. We were able to satisfy them and fulfill all the requirements that they had. And when we thought, okay, they're going to get converted to a customer, the big question came: who will manage this? By that time, we at that time we didn't have answer to this question because we just wanted to sell the hardware. But since we didn't have an answer, we lost the prospect. So this question, who will manage this? We thought and discussed over this question, and then we realized that most of the small and medium enterprises in country or across the world, they lack in-house talent for networking and security and general IT support, right? They cannot afford to have a highly qualified IT personnel or a networking and security expert. So we identified this gap, and we thought of entering managed network service where we deploy the hardware, we deploy the equipment, and then we manage that for our customers so that customers don't need to retain highly qualified network engineers, and we can manage their networks remotely. Now service brings the revenue. We realized it once we entered the managed service, because the question who is going to manage it or who is going to service it is a big question. So whatever product we buy, even if we buy a bike or a car or a washing machine or even a small mobile phone or maybe a pressure cooker, if we know that we are not going to get service for these products when we need it, we will be hesitant to procure it. And if we look around us, every successful product has a backing of good service behind it. So we made services as core offering, while the network equipment became the vehicle for delivering those services. It was also possible for us to use off-the-shelf or regular commercial network equipment and provide managed services over them. For example, there are various suppliers like Cisco, Sophos, Fortinet, CyberRoam. and there are a lot of managed service providers who use those equipment to provide service. But since we wanted to stick to free software, because whenever we used to think of a solution, we only think of free software. So we decided, I mean, it was a no-brainer for us that we will use free software firmware on open hardware to provide these services. So once we decided that we will provide managed services, we got a big break. A retail chain, it had more than 50 stores, warehouse and head office. They wanted network solution. They wanted all their locations to be connected together, web access control, security, multi-link balancing and failover. So we finally got that big customer. That time they had 50 stores. As of now, they have close to 400 locations, and we are still managing their network. So the question arises, why could we solve this someone's problem and not everyone's problem? The reason is because we tried to push a vanilla solution made by the community, and the community creates solutions which attempts to solve everyone's problem, while a business has to solve someone's problem. There's a gap between what the community has built and what a prospective customer wants. In order to fill that gap, someone has to dirty their hands. When we decided, okay, we can dirty our hands to fill that gap and provide a prospect or customer what they need using free software which is built by community, we were able to get that big break. So we had found the niche. It was small and medium enterprises which are geographically dispersed, and their network size was from 10 to 150 nodes or users. And if you look at our clientele, they spread from retail chains to health diagnostic labs, construction companies, food and beverage chains, and financial accounting firms. So this is a particular niche which we serve. In order to serve these customers, we had to import hardware. Now, when we imported hardware for the first time from Switzerland, we didn't know that we require import-export code. So we applied for import-export code, and in those days, it was really tricky because the application was written in Java and it worked on a particular browser. Somehow we managed to apply, but there were limitations on what size of file you can upload. Anyway, so finally we spoke on the phone to the Directorate General of Foreign Trade, and they provided us the IEC. Then we learned how to make foreign remittance for imports. That was a big learning. We also had to understand customs clearance procedure and take help from clearinghouse agents. So the first import was successful and uneventful. We made advance payment and we got our stuff. Then the second import, that time we heard the Incoterms for the first time. When we placed an order, earlier we used to get the email that, okay, ready to ship, waiting for payment. But this time the message was ready to ship, please confirm. And there was payment terms written net 10. Then we understood, okay, these are Incoterms. Anyway, import was done, and the process for remittance, once import is already done, is different from the process of import by making payment in advance. So the customs department mails you those days they used to send physical documents, dispatch the physical document to you, and then you had to provide the document to the bank to get the payments done. Once our goods got stuck in customs because we were not aware that Wireless Planning Commission's approval is required to import import any wireless equipment and antenna. Uh, but since the goods were stuck in customs, we didn't have time to apply for WPC equipment type approval, and it was an expensive affair. So we had to pay penalty to customs and to return the goods to origin. Uh, then we realized, okay, before importing any hardware or any goods, we need to check guidelines and only then try to import. Okay, okay. Issues didn't end there. We had further issues with import. Government made BIS certification compulsory, mandatory, but network equipments were out of scope. Uh, but the FAQ section in the document was ambiguous. It was open to interpretation. So customs interpreted it in some other way, while we interpreted in some other way. So we had to spend a lot of time to convince deputy commissioner by presenting valid arguments and different notifications. So when we used to present a notification, he used to present another notification to us, which superseded that. Luckily, the last notification that we presented was the latest one, and we got our goods imported. Okay. All right. So then further for making advance payment for imports, like when banks ask for BIS certificate, eventually we had to obtain BIS certification. But later we came to know that okay, BIS certification is not required for the kind of equipment or spare parts we import. But since we needed those equipment, we did whatever was required at that time uh, to keep inventory here and keep the business running. But yes, we need to stay aware of dynamic government policies so that we do not make such mistakes and lose time and money. The difficulty that we face is for hiring good people. So the kind of work that we do, we require persons who have good GNU Linux experience, and they must possess good networking knowledge, and they must be aware of routing protocols. OpenWRT is an embedded Linux distribution, so knowledge of OpenWRT is very niche or different from general laptop or desktop or server experience. And since we use a lot of software in building those equipment, so I mean, expecting a single person to have knowledge of all the software and all the configuration parameters is not practical, but still we do not find people who even fit, who even know 50% of what we require from them. And most importantly, people who are aligned with free software philosophy and ethics. That is very, very difficult for us to hire such kind of people. Right. So far, it was our journey business-wise. Now, I would also want to get technical here because I assume that a lot of people in the audience are from the technical side. So the kind of customers that we service have this kind of network where they have central office, then they have manufacturing unit or warehouse remotely, branch offices or home access, stores, and field executives. So they require connectivity between all of them with access control. So typical requirements that we hear from our customers are for multiple internet links, which for resiliency, they want VPN connectivity, bandwidth utilization optimization by prioritization, prioritizing business critical applications over non-critical applications, firewalling in security with say intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system. Most of the customers have problems. They want to prevent bandwidth leak by torrents or P2P traffic. Then web access control is high on priority of everyone, and wireless networks. So here is our hardware stack. From bottom, it's a super micro server which has a Xeon CPU. Then this golden device is a custom hardware that we get manufactured in China. Then these two are PC engines, APU and LX devices, and this is a low-cost MikroTik router, which uh, which only has 600 megahertz of CPU and 128 MB of RAM, but we still manage to run all the services that our customers require. For the software stack, we custom build OpenWRT firmware, which we install on the devices. Then we use Ansible to centrally manage device configuration. Once you have devices live in the field, you would want to visualize the resources. So we use Influx, Prometheus, and Grafana. And for security events, we we have a visualization made with Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. There is another application called Charcoal that we have developed. So, uh, for example, if you have 300 locations and you want to apply access control policies, you will have to manage blacklists and rules at all the locations. This particular software lets you manage all the access control list from just one place. So this is typical SD-WAN or multi-WAN scenario where you have multiple links, so you can have priority or weighted balance or enforced kind of policies where certain type of traffic is either load balanced or failovered or persistently sent over the working link. For traffic prioritization, it's like voice over IP traffic will be at highest priority, then VPN and business applications, then normal traffic, and then low and bulk traffic. So, for example, SAP or any ERP is business critical. It should run at highest priority. But say, for example, Skype, it should be blocked. Or for YouTube, consumption-based rules. For example, 64 GB of YouTube data is consumed, then that traffic should get dropped. This is a typical network diagram with OpenVPN. So all these locations, they are connected over VPN. This is the visualization of how many VPN tunnels are connected and what is the bandwidth utilization. Because if you don't visualize anything, if you cannot see anything, you cannot identify the problem and then cannot fix the problem. So visualization is very important. And we also have forward error correction. For example, if you a lot of our customers' locations are in remote areas where they only get access to the radio links. So radio links have tendency of getting misaligned and then having packet loss and high latency. So in order to uh, in order to your business application not getting affected due to packet loss or high latency, forward error connection is used, where you send redundant packets. For example, for every 10 packets, one extra packet is sent. So 10% extra packet is sent, and at the expense of higher bandwidth utilization and higher latency, you do not get any packet loss. So we use NOT for intrusion detection and prevention, and the rules from emerging threats and URL house are used. There is a small tool which we have written and which is yet to be packaged and sent upstream to OpenWRT to automatically block offending traffic. This is the charcoal that I was mentioning. So charcoal enables us to run a squid proxy on such a small device where we cannot even store blacklist. So a squid proxy server will talk to charcoal server for for the decision whether this particular traffic should be allowed or denied, and based on the ACL created on the portal, the allowed deny is allowed deny information is provided to the squid proxy server. So these are some of the visualizations that we provide to our customers. This is intrusion detection system visualization. It is made over ELK stack. This is web traffic visualization utilization. And these are telemetry and hardware resource utilization. So bandwidth consumption, packet loss, latency, and then CPU utilization, RAM utilization, how many connections are made. We also have deployment for. We also have deployed wireless access points. So these access points we used to assemble using PC Engine's Alex boards imported from Switzerland and Qualcomm Atheros radio cards. These also run OpenWRT based customized firmware. So these pictures are from a warehouse where we had created a mesh network to cover around 5 lakh square feet of area. Free software business doesn't mean that we only consume free software and provide and service them. We also have responsibility to contribute to the upstream project for whatever enhancement we have made. It's not compulsory, but we do that. So most notably, we have contributed to M13 package on OpenWRT. So we had made some modifications where the link quality is checked, and based on that, link is decided. Decision is made whether link is up, good enough to be considered up, or it should be pulled down for automated failover and load balance. We had also contributed, and we also maintain the package UDP Speeder on OpenWRT. Additionally, we have added support for a new hardware and contributed it to the upstream. And the charcoal server is a free software that we have created, and it's under GPL v3 and AGPL v3 license. So the question, is it possible to build a business that builds networks using free software? Uh, for me, I would say yes, because we are building networks and providing services to our customers for more than 10 years now. So first, we need to identify the gap. Then to fill the gap, businesses need to build solution. So the answer is yes, only if we are able to identify the gap and then fulfill the requirement to fill that gap. Free software businesses uh, typically have their hearts and minds at the right place. So we know that we want to respect users' freedom and privacy. What freedoms we get from the free software, we want to pass that on to our users. But then we lack we lack funds, mitochondria. So if you remember biology lessons, mitochondria is called powerhouse of the cell, and there is a reason for that, because generally investors are not excited about free software as there is no IPR to claim. So if there is no IPR, but there are other examples as well, but generally investors are not interested in free software businesses. But then ICFOSS, Swatantra Incubator, comes to the rescue, and they are helping free software businesses to incubate and thrive. They would need more such initiatives. So if you can just imagine 100 more companies in India helping build networks with free software, uh, we could see a lot more networks getting freed uh, by running free software and open hardware based network equipment instead of proprietary equipment which might be surveilling us. So yeah, that was all from my side. I would love to have questions or open discussion if
Oh, thank you, Nishant. Uh, the forum is now open for questions and discussions. Participants can turn on the mic and ask your questions.
Nishan Srini
I,
here. Can I put my question, Nishan?
yeah, please.
Yeah, Nishan, it was very interesting to note the journey over the 10 years or plus 10 years plus what I see. I think it is almost a 21 years journey when you talk about from 2000 onwards.
Right.
Uh, but how do you compare your growth with that of a non-FOSS entrepreneur? Business growth. Business growth wise, what was the difference? I understand all the philosophical and other angles, but
Right.
on the business side.
Well, on the business side, from my experience, it doesn't matter whether you are building solution using free software or not. All that matters is whether you are solving customers' problems efficiently, effectively, and elegantly, and then how how fiercely you are able to sell your services and products, right? Uh, because customer wants their problem solved, and the go-to-market strategy or how strong is your sales team, that is more important. That I can say from my experience.
Okay, one more question. That's regarding the open hardware.
Right.
I think it is quite long time since we all have been talking about open hardware.
Hmm.
So I miss to see even now truly business companies thriving on open hardware. What could be your suggestions in this regard, at least for organizations like ICFOSS
Hmm.
to take forward? And how do we encourage more open hardware based business? Because that is one area which we are trying to focus again.
See, when you talk about open hardware, I don't see much truly open hardware in the market. Uh, and the trend is going opposite. So earlier, the trend was to open open the drivers and reduce the binary blocks. For example, Atheros wireless cards. Atheros wireless cards were the most free software and open source friendly drivers where you did not need any binary blocks. But since when Qualcomm has taken over Atheros, for example, it's going reverse. So all you do not find any wireless card which has 802.11 AC without binary blocks. So the trend has reversed. Your earlier 2G modems were used to be open, but now your 4G and 5G modems in the phones, they are closed. So and since hardware is expensive, designing, prototyping, then manufacturing at volume is expensive. I think that could be the reason why open hardware businesses are not thriving. Even we talk about Raspberry Pi, but Raspberry Pi is also not truly open. It has binary drivers and binary blocks, and it also requires licenses if you want hardware acceleration beyond certain resolution, certain video resolution. So, I mean, hardware business requires deep pockets, and uh, I'm not sure what I can suggest to ICFOSS, but yeah, that's my observation. I don't see a definite way forward to address this problem. I'm uh, I'm we are trying to find our way around these limitations so that we can keep the hardware open enough to be able to run our free software.
Okay, thank you, Nishant.
Hi, Nishan.
Hi.
Okay, so you had also presented at Y Combinator. What was the feedback that you got there? How was that experience? Would you like to share that?
Uh, at Y Combinator, they had asked about what is the margin on hardware, and our margin on hardware was very low. Typically, in any hardware business, more than 50% margin is expected, but ours was 10 to 20%. So after that, we did not get any feedback, just an apology email that okay, you could not get into this batch. So yeah. Dhani has asked what are the immediate steps one should take if they are interested to do business with free software. Immediate steps. It depends from person to person. What situation are you in? If you have sufficient funds to sustain yourself, then you should find the gap. You first try to sell and then build the solution instead of building it and then trying to sell.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, Manu.
So my name is Manmohan Amos. I have a doubt.
Hmm.
How much time did you utilize to develop this organization?
I mean, I went all in since 2010, and we are still developing this organization. So it's an ongoing process. It's a journey. it's not the destination. You have to keep moving and keep evolving, keep iterating. So you have to try, build fast and then fail fast and then try another thing. If that fails, okay, then try another thing.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Are you willing to help an upcoming person in an entrepreneur?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat?
Hello? Okay, thank you, sir.
He was asking if you're willing to help a budding entrepreneur.
Ah, yes, yes, definitely. So you can get in touch with me, either email me or talk to me on Matrix.
Nishant, Srini here again.
Yeah.
Do we have a network of FOSS business solution providers in India?
Not that I'm aware of. We used to have Linux users groups and various free software users groups where enthusiasts and business free software business people, they used to meet monthly or bi-weekly, but I'm not aware of any such kind of network of FOSS businesses.
I think when you mentioned about supporting budding entrepreneurs, I think
Right.
a network like that would be more helpful to take up that. And, this FOSS Entrepreneurship Forum was just somewhat a starter on those directions as well. So that is just I wanted to query with you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So I think most of the participants are on the listen mode. You can post your questions in the chat box as well.
Nishant, what keeps you going? How do you keep yourself motivated when you're running your business and handling technical issues and business challenges at the same time?
All right. So I would say the buck stops with me. So that is the motivation enough. So if some problem is not resolved, gets escalated to me, then I have to solve it. If there is any business problem or any legal or compliance related issues, it will come to me. Then I have to take care of it because I cannot pass it on to anyone else. So when buck stops with you, you have to take responsibility and take charge. And then you have to keep moving. There is no other option.
Is it more difficult to run a free software business than any other type of business?
Uh, See, a business which just consumes free software and doesn't care about freedom of the users, then that business is not very different from a non-free software businesses. So any business uh, can be done ethically or unethically when you try to stick hard to your moral values or your philosophy and ethics, then definitely you will find more difficulties and more uh, roadblocks than when you don't give a second thought before giving up your ethics, business ethics. So yes, I find it difficult, but it's not impossible. And we are surviving for 11 years now, and surviving 11 years, the quote that I think you had coined, eating open source. So yes, we are eating open source for past 11 years now and still surviving. Okay.
There's a question in the chat box from Dhwani. Can you tell the impacts of COVID in your business?
Right. So major impact was of recurring revenue. We charge for managed services, and since our customers' physical stores were affected during lockdown, uh, so we had to offer discount, or they didn't. Oh, they asked for discounts for at least a quarter. But there were certain customers who are engaged in essential services. So they we are glad that we were able to provide support and keep their networks running. We had path labs also, and we have labs which do genome sequencing, and they were approved for COVID testing during the first wave. So yes, we had we had mixed impact. So financially it was negative, but positive was that we were able to keep their networks running, and we were able to contribute from our side whatever we could to handle the COVID wave.
Ishan Sweeney here again.
Yes.
You've been networking and other infrastructure your core business, especially aligned to FOSS solutions. What, according to you, like if you didn't go for this, what according to you was the next potential thing, which probably you or somebody else down the lane you will guide to take up?
See, there are two ways to think. One, what interests you and what is your passion, what you are passionate about, and skill. The other is what is the budding technology or upcoming technology which makes a good business sense, right? Uh, so I I I cannot advise on the second one because uh, I uh, I prefer to work on what I feel passionate about, and then there is also a responsibility, sense of responsibility of providing solution or services only only on the technologies that I am confident of, or uh, I know that I can reliably provide support and service on that.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. Fair enough. I understand that. Yes. But my question was something like, what will you advise to an upcoming potential FOSS entrepreneur? How to take up that? Like, what are the potential fields which you find in the horizon where they could take up?
right, so Internet of Things is very hyped up, but it's very fragmented. Every 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 hardware vendor is pushing their own own protocols and trying to create their own ecosystem. So if if someone is able to uh, capture or push products in the market which adhere to uh, um, an an open protocol or uh, So I think that would be a good field. Then zero trust network, from the networking field, zero trust network is the rage these days. And once 5G networks are deployed everywhere, that time uh, it is said that wireless access points would become redundant. Every device will have a SIM and it will be always connected to the internet. So in that case, endpoint security would become very important, where you don't have a central place to apply policies like we do in current scenario, that we put a firewall or an access controller in the network. And that time endpoint security would make more sense. So there are not very good endpoint security solutions as of now. Most of them are proprietary. I think yes, endpoint security is an upcoming field with the advent of 5G networks.
Are there? Do you have any input on the data science related business solutions, which could be uh, of potential great for entrepreneurship?
Well, data science related businesses were always in demand and great for entrepreneurship. Uh, Even 20 years back or 30 years back, data was there and it was being analyzed, but now the size of data and access to data collection and data retention has increased. So we have a lot of data to analyze. Uh, so yes, data science and data analytics still has a good scope. Uh, it always had, so it will have the scope. But since I do not have much exposure uh, to data science, I might not be the right person to advise on that. But yes, generally speaking, data science and data analytics has always been in the demand.
Just curious, since you are working on the networking field, which actually generates a lot of data.
Exactly.
Are you or have these companies evolved into using these data analytics more on their maintenance front or any other front? Uh, some data
Well,
analytics and
right. So
machine
we are.
learning.
Yeah, so we ourselves are working on using the data that we generate. So there is utilization data, there is traffic data, there is intrusion detection prevention system data. So we are working on making it intelligent enough so that an anomaly is found in data pattern at one location, and then we can compare it, and if that is a genuine threat, then the configuration changes can be deployed everywhere else to prevent or mitigate uh, future future breach or attack. So that is in the pipeline, but we haven't yet been able to do anything on that. I hope we should be able to do something in the next 2 quarters.
Okay, thank you, Nishan. Over to you, Anjali.
So, any questions from participants? Um, I think we can wrap up the session. Thank you so much, Nishant, for such an interesting talk. Thank you for your time and efforts. Thank you all the participants for your participation and support. As mentioned earlier, we are planning to continue this series in the upcoming months. So requesting all your cooperation. Um, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, everyone, for having me here.
Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Just bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. you.